Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Adijan Ayanlar. As Israel nears the 11th month mark of its war on Gaza, the economic costs are starting to show. The latest data points are in, and they paint an economy that is slowing across the board. Second quarter figures show exports and investments being hit hard, mainly due to countries cutting off trade and divesting over Israel's atrocities in Gaza. Despite those warning signs, Israel's attacks are continuing unabated. Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics said that the country's GDP grew by just 1.2% in the April to June period. But on a per capita basis, GDP shrank, both compared to the previous quarter and to the corresponding quarter last year. The war in Gaza has also curbed consumer spending in Israel as food prices are on the rise. After Turkiye halted trade with Israel for its blocking of humanitarian aid into Gaza, fruit and vegetable costs have soared across the country. The latest figures come as Israel and Hezbollah exchanged fire over the weekend, raising fears of a wider regional war. For more on the economic impact of Israel's war on Gaza, joining me now from Istanbul is Sami Al-Aryan. He is a professor and the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. And Mehmet Çelik, he is the editorial coordinator over at the Daily Sabah. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. It's good to have you on the show. Mehmet Çelik, let me begin with you. I've gone over some of the numbers, but let me repeat them for you. In the fourth quarter of last year, Israel's GDP shrunk by over 20%. The Bank of Israel is estimating that this war that the country is waging on Gaza is probably going to cost them in the vicinity of about $55 billion in the period leading up to 2025. To put it bluntly, war is an expensive affair.
Alijan, indeed, it is an expensive affair. And actually, as of the numbers I got today, the war so far has cost the Israeli economy about 67.3%. And this is an estimate by some of the $67.3 billion. This is an estimate by some of the Israeli economists. So indeed, there is a huge impact of this war on the Israeli economy at different levels, not just at macroeconomic levels, but also it has a very strong implication on each Israeli citizen that is purchasing for their daily products each and every day. But I mean, I don't think we should diminish the economic impact of this war only to the Israeli economy. And of course, there is a huge toll on the Gazan economy, in addition to the human costs. I mean, when there is such a huge, drastic human cost in this war, it is a little bit absurd to even talk about numbers in economic terms. But of course, we have to talk about these too. But at a wider regional perspective, there's also implications that we should take into consideration. The geopolitical risks has killed the appetite for investment in several countries, not only in Israel, but also in the surrounding region as well. The cost of supply and the delivery routes have increased, given the other, let's say when we talk about the Suez Canal and the delivery of goods through that. So the economic impact is not only on the Israeli citizens, Israeli macroeconomic indicators. In addition to Gaza, there is also the geopolitical economic implications that I think need to be taken into consideration. And the economists are estimating that this war will carry into 2025, and the implication in terms of the numbers will also grow with a further margin.
Okay, Mehmet, we'll get into the geopolitical risks in just a bit, but I want to bring Sami Al-Aryan into the conversation. The fact of the matter is, Sami, that if this was any other country, that country's economy would be in a much worse situation. And that's because there is a major player that's throwing a lifeline. For the better part of the last several decades, the United States has been propping up the Israeli economy by sending in excess of, I think, $3 billion a year. That number, because of this war, has inflated to closer to $15 billion. So there is a huge in more ways than one, an economic enabler here, isn't there?
There's no question that the U.S. has been a partner to Israeli crimes in Gaza. They have provided Israel just the past few months with over $20 billion of armaments. But of course, they have also been subsidizing the Israeli economy for years. Since probably the 1970s until now, over $300 billion have been given to Israel, which was bombed into the Israeli economy. But I think this war, as you pointed out, we're talking about huge amount of suffering of the Israeli economy because of this war. Your guest said about $67 billion, and it's increasing also. We're talking about at least 60,000 companies have shut down. We're talking about perhaps billions of dollars of foreign investments that have been denied. Intel by itself pledged to invest about $25 billion. That has also dried up. Intel is no longer interested in investing in the Israeli economy. We talked about Ansarullah that have been denying shipping to the seaport of Eilat, which has impacted much of the commerce coming through the Red Sea. So certainly, I mean, when you add this whole up, you'll find the Israeli economy has been shrinking to the tune of at least 10 to 20% this year and probably more next year. But more importantly, also that this is not just an economic thing. It's also the whole society has been geared up towards war. We're talking about an army that is about 170,000, but the reserves have been called into this war, about 300,000. They are the bread and butter of this economy. When we talk about 500,000 people have served into this 10 months war, we're talking about a war economy, and countries, when they have a war economy, that means the suffering is going to spread throughout society. Those people who are in technology sectors, in the most productive parts, have been called up to in the army, and they're not just fighting and killing Palestinians. I'm sure also tens of thousands of them have been impacted, either injured, killed, or are suffering mentally and physically, which also is going to impact the economy.
Very much, I mean, when you look at the situation before October the 7th of last year, there was certain sectors within the economy that was very much intertwined. And I'm talking about agriculture, I'm talking about construction. It's because nearly 200,000 Palestinians were actually able to participate in the Israeli economy. Now, because of what's happened and because of travel restrictions, movement restrictions, this is no longer an option. And this is obviously also affecting the Israeli economy, is it not?
That's right. About 80,000 Palestinians are somehow in different sectors, agriculture and construction the most, and they have been denied entries. That also has impacted the economy. The Israeli construction companies have been crying out that they no longer have people to continue construction. Construction is delayed. Many of the projects that are supposed to have been finished this year are no longer able to finish them. They tried to get foreign laborers, and they haven't been able to do that, in addition to the large cost. But a lot of people do not want to go to a zone that is a war zone. So that part of the economy also has been impacted. But also we need to look at the Palestinian economy. You can't just look at the Israeli economy. The Palestinian economy itself has been devastated, not to speak of a whole city, the city of Gaza with 2.4 million people. They have been totally destroyed and devastated because of the Israeli genocide and ethnic cleansing going on now for about 11 months.
Let me turn to you. We've seen in the past 50 years some of the world's superpowers and the wars that they've waged, whether it's the US in Vietnam, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, the USSR in Afghanistan. The dollars and cents, at some point, it factored in. Do you think at any point this is going to be an issue when it comes to Israel's war on Gaza?
I think it's already an issue that is, affecting daily lives of the Israelis, and they are putting pressure on Netanyahu government. However, the fact that Netanyahu is in this war with all he has, I think it makes it difficult for his common sense to be at work, so that this war stops. But I think that if the Israeli opposition or Israeli public is able to put pressure on Netanyahu government, maybe it will be a game changer. However, more importantly, I think when the cost of this war becomes actual, tangibly, it affects the U.S. taxpayers and the U.S. government's interests in the region, then they may be able to put pressure on Netanyahu to stop this genocidal acts that he's been carrying out since October 7th. Otherwise, at this point, that bread and butter is not, if it is not affected so much in the long term or in the coming months, I'm afraid the war will continue as that pressure is not strong enough from the Israeli public as of yet that Netanyahu is able to pull back from what he's been doing in Gaza.
Okay, Sami, let me ask you the last question. A Palestinian movement that started before October the 7th is BDS. How effective do you think that has been, and do you feel that it could sort of gain traction worldwide?
That's a very important point because boycott has spread now because of this war. Many companies have been impacted. Starbucks is just one of them. Their CEO just resigned because of the losses they mounted in the past months. There has been widespread boycott throughout the world, not just in the Arab and Muslim world, but also even in the West and other places. And it's going to even increase because of this genocidal action. But also another point I want to make out, I want to say about what you mentioned about other wars. The U.S. was able to print about $3 to $6 trillion because U.S. is dominant around the world. They can just simply print out money because the dollar is dominant. But Israel cannot get out of this crisis by printing money. And even if the U.S. gives it certain aid and support, that's not enough for them to come out of this hole that they dug themselves in, which is the economy, the war economy. And I think this is going to have lasting impact, not only because of the boycott, which is going to impact the global economy, but also because of the amount of destruction they've done, destruction they've done to the Israeli economy because of the war.
Okay. Sami Al-Arian and Mehmet Çelik, always a pleasure having you here on Straight Talk 2. Appreciate it. Thank you.